Jesus had thousands of disciples because disciples were followers who just listened to him and took in what he said. And all the 12 were disciples first, and then they became apostles because Jesus specifically chose them. He went up on the hill to pray.
Mary, go with that one more time.
Mm-hmm.
All of the disciples
all the apostles were first disciples because disciples were just followers who listened to Jesus preaching.
Okay.
But only the 12 became. He went up onto the mountain to pray. I forget where this is. And he came down, and among all the disciples, he chose the 12.
Okay.
And when I was trying to find information on James the Less, all the commentaries said, we never hear much about him, but obviously he was special because Jesus wouldn't have chosen him if he hadn't been. And he's still going to be having, he's going to judge the people in heaven. He's going to have his name on one of the 12 foundations in heaven. So he's less because, James the Less, because it either made him smaller in stature or younger, as opposed to James the Great or James the Elder, which was the brother of John, who was the sons of Zebedee and the sons of thunder. So they were just more assertive. And if you watch the Chosen, which I talked to Pastor last night, he said he doesn't like the Chosen. And I said, why? I really like it. He said because it's produced by Mormons. And they believe, that Mormons are safe people and everything. And he said the music he doesn't like.
Okay.
And I went, right. But
I think you have to say. Mormons, God used sinners to carry the gospel and do things, so that's my point there with that.
And that's what Paul said, as long as they're preaching the word.
Preaching the word,
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, here, Carmen.
My darling friend told me to take one, so I did.
Okay.
Can you sit here and answer the phone? Yeah.
Oh, no, not in here.
I'm gonna close the door so Lacey won't interrupt you.
Oh, okay. Oh, I was gonna say Terry wants her, so there we go. Right. They also, Paul is considered an apostle, and to be an apostle, these were the three things that you had to be. You had to eyewitness Jesus' earthly ministry, death, and resurrection. You had their eyewitness account, and Acts 1, 21 and 22, and 24 and 25, which says, I didn't mark these. Acts 1, 21 and 22 says, so some of the men who have accompanied us during all the time that the Lord Jesus went in and out among us, beginning from the baptism of Jesus and the day he was taken up from us, one of these men must become with us a witness to his resurrection. And they put, and this is when they're talking about when they're deciding if it should be Barabbas or Matthias to take Judas's place after Judas died. And they decided on Matthias for that. So that was what they said that the qualifications for. You had to have an eyewitness account and be with Jesus from the time of his baptism with John and to his resurrection. You had to have a direct calling, which obviously Matthias couldn't have because Jesus wasn't around anymore. And seeing Jesus after his resurrection. So those were the qualifications, and the reason Paul makes it because Jesus appeared to him on the road to Damascus and took him up to heaven and taught him. So that's how he gets him as an apostle. All right, most of the 12 disciples were from Galilee, and one of the commentaries said that they had, many or all of them had Gentile blood in them, which, okay. You have to be so careful when you go into commentaries, etc., because especially with James the Less, they got so confused and kept saying that James the Less was the same as James, the brother of Jesus. Catholics believe that. Catholics believe that James the Less is also James, the brother of Jesus, which I don't know how they, because they say his father is Alphaeus and his mother is Mary, wife of Clopas. So I don't know how. But they, and then all the commentaries would then start out with James the Less and about him, and then they'd go into merging him with James, the brother of Jesus, and he wrote the book of James, and he was the first the first leader of the Church of Jerusalem, etc. That was James, the brother of Jesus. But, okay. So anyway, but that one of the commentaries said that the apostles could have had Gentile blood because 100 years before, the Hammurabians or someone forced the conversion of the Gentile population to Judaism. So a lot of them were Gentiles that converted, whether they were true converts or not was a whole other thing. And also when you hear a lot of times that the apostles were uneducated, that is not true. That all but maybe James the Less and Judas, not the son, not Iscariot, were graduates of Hebrew school. Because boys went to Hebrew school and learned about the Torah, and a lot of the commentaries said that some of them couldn't read, but they memorized the Hebrew alphabet, and they memorized so many sections of the Torah that they could recite. And that's what you see on The Chosen too, that they're all reciting it, and not necessarily can they read or write, but they've memorized so much of it. But they were in the school in Galilee, the Jewish school in Galilee was supposedly the best in Capernaum, where they all must have gone. It was the best in all of Galilee, so they weren't uneducated. And especially Matthew. Matthew was highly educated. He had to be because he was a tax collector, and he had to keep very precise records for the Romans. And he also probably knew not only Hebrew, Greek, Aramaic, and Latin, but smatterings of other languages, because he was the tax collector in Capernaum, and that was one of the cities that was on the trade routes. So he was running into all kinds of people all the time, and had to get that money, so you better know how to talk to them and tell them what they need.
He had to keep 2 sets of books.
That's right, that's right. Just like a lot of people do today. And Matthew, every one of the Gospels talk about when they give not John, but Matthew, Mark, and Luke, they give the names of the apostles. And Matthew named himself in 10:3. Matthew 10:3, and he identifies himself as Matthew the tax collector. And what is interesting, September 21st, according to this stuff too, is St. Matthew's Day. I think that's only the Catholics, or whatever, just a little side note. But in Matthew 10:3, he identified himself as Matthew the tax collector. And before he was Matthew, he was Levi. And it's not unusual, like that said, Peter was Cephas and Simon, Jacob was Israel, that there's a lot of times that there's dual names that people have, so it wasn't uncommon. However, because his name was Levi, many of the commentators think that his family thought that he's of Levi tribe and he was going to be a priest. Instead, he became a tax collector, and tax collectors in those times were hated.
Just like today.
Right. And even in the Torah, it said that it was allowed and even encouraged to lie to tax collectors, because they were such liars. And tax collectors,
Just like today.
Just like today.
Same thing.
They couldn't.
It came from back then.
Right. They couldn't go into the synagogue, And they couldn't testify in court because they were so well known to be liars. And also, that's why in the parable of the publican and the publican, the Pharisee and the publican, that it says, you know, the publican stood afar off, and John MacArthur said he stood afar off because that's the only place he could stand. He could not go into the temple. They could only go as far as the Gentile area, and that was it. And I don't know if Matthew, once he went with Jesus, if he got to go further in or not, but that was what tax collectors were. And they were seen the same as murderers and thieves and prostitutes, just the lowest of the low of society. But most of them had some money, and especially Matthew supposedly had money. And they also, there were two types of tax collectors. One set was called the GABBAI, and supposedly with them there was way less corruption because they had specific amounts that they could tax, and they were for food like fruit and vegetables and that, and also for income tax. But the others were called mollahs, and they could tax anything. You had to pay a certain amount to Rome, and after that you could charge whatever you wanted, and that's why the Jewish people hated them so much. And everything was taxed. It was legs on donkeys could be taxed.
Just like today.
Right. Letters, clothes, houses, horses, anything that they could tax, and you had there was no appeal. You paid, you know, and it was like a franchise. You had to pay, you had to bid on it and pay for it. And they wanted Jewish people to do the collection from other Jewish people. So, and they paid a certain amount to Rome, and then you could get whatever you want. And it was like a sales tax that was taxed on everything. And obviously the mullahs were more corrupt and a lot more greed. Zacchaeus, which remember he was the tax collector, the little man up in the tree.
Yeah.
He was a chief tax collector. He had other ones, lower ones, do the actual dirty work. He was like he took the money, but he was apart from it. Matthew, on the other hand, was right there getting the money, and they said they didn't know if that was because of greed. He didn't want to share it with anybody, or maybe he couldn't afford to do it to anybody else. Whatever. But Zacchaeus had his, and also they knew that both Matthew and Zacchaeus knew the Old Testament really well, because Zacchaeus told Jesus that if he cheated anybody, he would pay him back 4 times, and that's in Deuteronomy. If you cheat, you pay back 4 times. And you see in Matthew, in the book of Matthew, so much information about the Old Testament and the laws and the prophets and everything. He was obviously very well schooled in it. Wasn't a believer probably until he followed Jesus, but he was well schooled and very educated in it. So, also it's interesting that he had the most to lose of all the apostles. The fishermen could go back to fishing. There was always nets, there was always boats, there was everything. And in fact, in John 21, when they thought Jesus was gone, they did go back to fishing. And then Jesus said, that was when he said, put your net on the other side and everything. So they were only fishermen for a brief moment. But they did, they could. Matthew was done. He could not go back to being a tax collector. And the commentary said it was probably within minutes somebody had that job because they were so sought after. So he was done. The Romans wouldn't take him back. And he was so despised by the Jewish people. He was so he never hesitated. All of them, none of them when they were called by Jesus, nobody hesitated. He said to Matthew, follow me, and he just got up and left everything and followed Jesus. So he was probably the most courageous of all of them that had everything to lose. And some of these commentaries, in the Bible, it only says that Peter was one of the married apostles. These commentaries, I think they said Matthew was married and had 4 kids or something, and all these others. And I said, it's extra biblical, of course, but that's why I say you just gotta be so into the Bible to know if what you're reading is commentary, true commentary of the Bible, or something made up stuff. So, Matthew's called Levi in Mark 2:14, Luke 5:27-29, and in Mark, he's called Matthew in 9:9 when he calls himself Matthew. He's called Levi in Mark 2:14, and he's called Levi in Luke 5:27-29 when they're naming the apostles. And in Mark, he's called Levi, the son of Alphaeus. And the feeling is that the reason he doesn't call himself the son of Alphaeus because he was probably disowned by his family. And the others knew who he was. And the other interesting fact, which Diane already knew when I told her this, that James the Less was also known as the son of Alphaeus. And so some of the commentaries say for sure they were brothers, and some said that James was a tax collector also, but he wasn't because he wasn't educated. So there's no way he could have been, unless he was maybe an underling of Matthew, who knows. But some of the commentaries say, of course they were brothers, and some say no, that Alphaeus was a common name in that time, and and why wouldn't, if the Bible, they, say James and John are brothers, Peter and Andrew are brothers, why wouldn't they say they were brothers? But then they also said maybe because there was such a stigma in Matthew being a tax collector, James the Less didn't want to be known as his brother, so who knows? But some are totally sure they're brothers, some are totally sure they're not their brothers. Bible doesn't say. So, anyway, that's one of the theories that he possibly was the brother of Matthew. Okay, after Jesus said, follow me, and Matthew left everything and followed him, he had a feast in his home, and a massive feast, because he was rich, not as rich as Zacchaeus. They said Zacchaeus was fabulously wealthy. Cheating those people, you make a lot of money.
He was the bank.
Yeah.
The bank, that's right. The bank up.
He had a feast, and he invited all his friends, and of course his friends were only sinners, other tax collectors, prostitutes, and everything. And Jesus and the disciples happily went to the feast. And of course, we have the Pharisees outside and looking in. And I love the way they never confront, well, they do, but most of the time they'll go to the disciples first and criticize Jesus. And they went to the disciples and said, why are you and your master eating with publicans and sinners? And of course, Jesus knew their heart, and he heard them or just knew and said, I didn't come to say that I came to be with people that need a physician, not those that do. And Pharisees needed it more than anybody, but they didn't know it. These people knew they needed Jesus, and that was one of the reasons. He was a friend of tax collectors and sinners, and they loved him because he treated them the same as everybody. So, okay, and the last time we hear about Matthew is Acts 1:13. Well, I think it's where they named the disciples. So this is when they're all in the upper room, and that's the last time. And when they returned to Jerusalem from the Mount of Olivet, which is near Jerusalem, a Sabbath day's journey. And when they had entered, they went to the upper room where they were staying. Peter and John and James and Andrew, Philip and Thomas, Bartholomew and Matthew, James the son of Alphaeus, and Simon the Zealot, and Judas the son of James. So that's the last time we hear about Matthew, although extra biblical writings say that they all supposedly branched out and taught the gospel all over the place, and he allegedly went to Ethiopia, Persia, Syria, one other place, and supposedly, and there's all kinds of stuff about how he finally died, and where did I put this? Some say he was executed because, I don't know where it was. Here's my little thing. Okay. He went to Perea, Macedonia, Syria, and Ethiopia, and they think that he may have died in Ethiopia, but nobody's sure. And what I think it was Joseph said that a cardinal commission, a Catholic cardinal commissioned a painting of the martyrdom of Saint Matthew's, which I think is in the Vatican, and it shows that he was slain by a soldier with a sword, who was sent by a wicked king, and it was in front of a lot of onlookers, because like John, he had told the wicked king that he was lusting after his niece, who was a believer, and he said that that was wrong. So the king was like Herod's wife and got mad and had him killed. And the niece was a believer. But there's also commentary that said he was burned, he was stoned, he was beheaded, stabbed to death, and even some say he died a natural death. So nothing in the Bible we don't know, and who knows? They have all these different things. What happened to him? And he's the patron saint of tax collectors, bankers, and accountants. And that's right.
That might be even worse than the rest of us.
Right. And when he wrote the book of Matthew, he wrote for a Jewish audience, because that was his audience, and because he knew the Old Testament so well, and he had more references to the Old Testament than all the other Gospels combined. It was he had 50 Old Testament references to prove Jesus was Messiah. He quoted the Old Testament prophets 130 times. He talks about the kingdom of heaven 55 times. So he was permeated with the Old Testament. And also, he had named, when he did the beginning of Matthew that has the genealogy, he named the 5 women in the genealogy. It was like, to the Pharisees, it was scandalous. You never put women in genealogies. And then the women he put in, Tamar, Rahab, Ruth was a Moabitess, Rahab was a prostitute, Tamar was a Gentile and did that little thing with her father-in-law, Bathsheba, who committed adultery with David, but who knows if she was forced or not. That's an issue, you know. And Mary's the only pure one. Mary's the only pure one. But, you know, which the whole thing about Matthew and all this is that God accepts anyone. It's a lesson to us that no matter how bad you've been, how many bad things you've done, God will always, if you repent and come to Him, He will always forgive you, no matter what other people may think about you. Jesus is there for forgiveness. And also, like on your little chart that I gave you, you can just look over it. He wrote the Matthew in Greek, not in Hebrew or Aramaic, and that was because he wanted a wider audience to be able to read it and to see all the things that were in it. And the symbol of Matthew is a winged man. And if you go to you'd have been to the Ringling. When you go into the first room, there are those big, whatever you call them. They're carpets on the wall today, but mural. Well, no. Tapestries. And they have one of the 4 apostles, and they have what their Catholic symbols are. And Matthew's a winged man, and I forget what the rest are. Mark, Luke, and John. But they all they have their symbols. And in his gospel, he has 5 major discourses, which they believe probably mirrors the book of the 5 books of the Torah. And once again, he's following the Old Testament. And it was basically for the Jewish audience that were familiar with the Torah. He emphasized Jesus as king. He wanted everybody to know he was Messiah and king. He has a lot more miracles and different than in the other Gospels, and he has a lot more parables that are found in the other Gospels. And he has the Beatitudes, and it's very long and detailed. Luke also has the Beatitudes, but it's a much shorter, like, summary of it. Matthew's is long, and it was like he is in the Chosen, taking notes all the time and everything. And his gospel ends with the Great Commission, in which all the apostles ended up doing. So, something else. Let's see. So I chose Matthew first because he was writing the first book of the New Testament. Oh, and also, when you see when they name the disciples in Matthew, Mark, and Luke, they always are in the same order. And they think it's 4, 4, and 4. And once again, the commentators, this is not biblical. They think the first 4 were the most intimate with Jesus, which they were, was Matthew, Mark, Luke. I mean, it was John, Peter, James, and Andrew. Andrew wasn't so much in that group, but they had 4. And the second one, Matthew's in that. And then in the third one, James the Less is in the third one. And like I said, they think it's who was closer to Jesus. But James the Less, when you don't think of him as he was a lesser man, or that he wasn't, revered or anything, it was just it means he was either shorter or younger, not that he was a less person. And James, the brother of John, son of Zebedee, was James the Great or James the Elder to distinguish him. And it's very confusing because there's so many James and Johns in the Bible. But the 4 James that are in the Gospels is James, the son of Zebedee, son of thunder, James the Less, son of Alphaeus, James, Jesus' brother, who wrote the Gospel of James, and James, who was the father of Judas not Iscariot. So those are the James, and it's kind of hard to keep them all separate because there's so many just like with John, but those are the James. All right, so now to James the Less, which it was less, there was so little about him. James the Less' mother is Mary, who is maybe the sister of Mary, the mother of Jesus. Did you know they have so many names you can name your kids? Mary, Mary, Mary. But sometimes today they have Mary Beth, Mary Hope, Mary. I have cousins that they're all Mary, Mary, Marys. They just have different middle names. And I think they call them by their middle names. But in Luke 24:10, no, it was Mary Magdalene and Joanna and Mary the mother of James and the other women with him who told these things to the apostles. This is after the resurrection. And so they're saying, remember how starting back at further up in 24, the women of course went to the grave. They weren't being chickens like the men. But when they went in, they did not find the body of the Lord Jesus. Starting 24:3. While they were perplexed about this, behold, 2 men stood by them in dazzling apparel. And as they were frightened and bowed their faces to the ground, the men said to them, "Why do you seek the living among the dead? He is not here. He is risen. Remember how he told you while he was still in Galilee that the Son of Man must be delivered into the hands of sinful men and be crucified and on the 3rd day rise?" And they remembered his words. And returning from the tomb, they told all these things to the 11 and to all the rest. Now it was Mary Magdalene and Joanna and Mary the mother of James and the other women with him who told these things to the apostles. But these words seemed to them an idle tale, and they did not believe them. It was just like them. But here it says, Mary the mother of James. Okay, it doesn't
It seems
say
it does.
James the Less, and it doesn't distinguish James, so there's
Which one?
debate about which James we're talking about here, but I believe it's James the Less, because she's also at the cross at Matthew 27, 56 and 57. I hope this is the one. There were so many women there looking, this is still at the cross. There were also many women there looking on from a distance who had followed Jesus from Galilee. It's 55, I'm sorry, 27:55. There were also many women there looking on from a distance who had followed Jesus from Galilee, ministering to him, among whom were Mary Magdalene and Mary, the mother of James and Joseph, and the mother of the sons of Zebedee, who's also named Mary. Some people think that they were talking about Mary, the mother of Jesus there, because she had sons, James and Joseph. But I think they would have distinguished that. So I think that's James the Less. All right, and then 28:1, Matthew 28:1. Now after the Sabbath, toward the dawn of the first day of the week, Mary Magdalene and the other Mary went to see the tomb. And I think that's talking about Mary, the mother of because they would have said Mary, the mother of Jesus. I think that was the Mary they were talking about. I can't, for sure, but I think that's what they would do. All right, and John 19:25. Let's see what this says. So, James the Less is more talked about by his mother than by himself, but okay.
And that's normal.
Yeah, right, and right. 19:25. Okay. But standing by the cross of Jesus were his mother and his mother's sister Mary, the wife of Clopas, and Mary Magdalene. Okay. I know they say Alphaeus was the son of John the Less, but some of them said Clopas was the same name as Alphaeus. So this is, once again, I think this is Mary, the son of John the Less, who was at the cross with Mary Magdalene and Mary, the mother of Jesus, and Joanna and whoever else, what other women were there. Which tells you that maybe James the Less wasn't talked about that much, but his mother was a very serious follower of Jesus. So, good lineage here, good lineage. And James, the last time he's mentioned in the scriptures is 1 Corinthians. Well, that we think, like I said, there's always controversy which James it ever really is. And 1 Corinthians 15:7, when Paul's talking about the resurrection of Jesus. And so, let's go back because to 15:3. But I delivered to you as of first importance what I also received, that Christ died for our sins in accordance with the scriptures, that he was buried, that he was raised on the third day in accordance with the scriptures, and then he appeared to Cephas, Peter, then to the 12. Then he appeared to more than 500 brothers at one time, most of whom are still alive, although some have fallen asleep. Then he appeared to James, then to all the apostles. So, like I said, there was commentary that said he was the first one to see the resurrected Christ. Number one, he wasn't. The women were. And number two, Peter was the first apostle to see the resurrected Christ. But somehow he saw him first before maybe all the other apostles other than Peter. So, but it's not clear, and I'm not one of these people that are going to interpret the Bible the way I think it should be interpreted. So, and also James the Less is always in the same position when they name the disciples. Go to Matthew 10:2-4. That's the first time they name all the disciples. Or apostles at this point. They're now apostles. So you all know next time what the difference is when they say apostles or disciples. 10, 2 and 4. All right. They are Simon, who's called Peter the first, the big mouth, and Andrew his brother, James the son of Zebedee, and John his brother. So that's the inner circle, but except for Andrew wasn't as inner as the other three. Then Philip and Bartholomew, Thomas and Matthew. So Matthew was always the eighth. And James the son of Alphaeus and Thaddeus. So James the Less was always the ninth, and Thaddeus, Simon the can't say it. He's from Canaan. But no,
Canaanite.
and I am Canaanian. But no, it's Canaan. But and Judas Iscariot who betrayed him. Oh, and one of the other things that I read, probably when he had really, like in The Chosen, he had really taxed the disciples, well, he was taxing everybody heavily, but the disciples, and they thought to Jesus, what in the world are you calling him for? He's almost ruined us. And it may be true, like he almost ruined Peter and Andrew's fishing business, like in The Chosen. And he really hated him at first. And Simon the Zealot, who was a zealot, probably wanted to kill him because he was so against he was one of the party of the zealots who were trying to overthrow the Roman rule and had certain swords they carried that was to kill any Roman if they could get away with it. So it was probably only Jesus' intervention that saved him. But they saw that he had a changed heart and how he behaved, and they grew to love him just like the rest of them. But it took a while because of his background. But it takes that, we're all like that. Somebody comes in that you don't like so much, but they change their personalities and you can grow to like them. So, and also let's go to Mark 3 and just see that Mark 3, 13 to 19. And the Acts one doesn't name them all, just so you know. It just has a partial list. And if you all find out something that's different from what I said or from something, be sure and tell me, because there's so little that's in the Bible and so much that's based on speculation and commentary and everything that, and this one, it started out having good information. I thought, oh wow, this is going to be really good. And then I read further and it just went off the rails. It's like cults. There's always some truth in them. That's why they can suck people in. You got to be so careful, So Mark 3, 13 to 19. And he went up to, this is when he called them, that I talked about. And he went up on the mountain and called to him those whom he desired, and they came to him. And he appointed 12, whom he also named apostles. So they
What Bible are you reading from?
Mine's different.
ESV.
Because he ordained.
Oh, really? That's what it says?
That's
Are you
a
in King James?
That's
Yes.
a difference.
It's a big difference. Appointed versus it.
Ordained.
Read it 5 through 13 through 19.
And he goeth, 13 through 19?
Yes.
Yeah.
And he goeth up unto the mountain and called unto him who he would, and they came unto him. And he ordained 12, that they should be with him, and that he might send them forth to preach, and to have power to heal sicknesses and cast out devils. And Simon he surnamed Peter, and James the son of Zebedee, and John the brother of James, and he surnamed them, Boanerges, which is the son of thunder, and Andrew and Philip, and Bartholomew, and Matthew, and Thomas, and James, and the son of Alphaeus, and Thaddeus, and Simon of Canaanite, and Judas Iscariot, which also betrayed him, and went into a house.
See, and in ESV it says in 14, it says appointed, but then it also adds, whom he also named apostles, and that's not in King James. Okay.
Wrong Bible.
Ah.
Every version's a little bit different.
Different.
But this is the right one.
Yeah.
Everybody
This
is.
is one of the
As
same
some-
thing.
Yeah, you have the same thing. Good girl.
Brenda, some of her said, if it was good enough for Paul, it's good enough for us.
I like that. I like that. I like that.
All right, so go to Luke 6, 12 to 16.
Say that again.
Luke 6. But you see that they're all in the same order. And why is that? Can't tell you. And none of the commentaries, so they just noted that's what it was. They didn't venture why, unless you know that in accordance with their relationship to Jesus. All right, 16, 12 to 16.
Oh, it's 16.
Yeah, Luke 16, 12 to 16.
We talk
Yeah,
about 6.
I'm 6. Oh, no, I
It was
probably did.
16.
Yeah.
I'm not hearing well.
And
I thought it was 16.
But it did say what you wanted on.
but it's not, it's wrong. And I think it must be, oh, no, it is 6.
It's
I
6,
said
I know
six.
it's 6.
6 is right. Yeah,
I'm already easily confused.
right,
I
right.
need
Well, I
extra
always
help.
am too. All right, 6, 12 to 16.
Yes.
All right. Now it came to pass in those days, he went out to the mountain to pray and continued all night in prayer to God. Can you imagine praying all night? And he didn't sleep. This one we're not. We snoozed off. He prayed all. And I was thinking, what was he saying all night? You know,
It had to be repetitious.
Mhm.
I would run out of things to ask.
right,
Yeah.
right. That's what, you know,
Would.
when people say they pray for hours.
I don't get it. I mean,
I
it could happen, but
Right,
Yeah.
right,
Yes,
starting.
hours.
Oh, there's another thing, which was that a lot of the things said James the Less was so devout that he was a Nazarite. Now, I think the Bible would have said he was a Nazarite if he was a Nazarite, so I don't believe that. But also that he prayed so much that his knees were like camels, because they got so
Okay.
stiff and bumpy. But,
I could believe that.
I could, yeah.
yeah,
Here
but.
there's a lot
Oh,
of
yeah,
sensitive
And
skin.
I think it's, who knows, they said James the Just, the brother of Jesus, what happened, he was preaching, just like Jesus, and they told him, you have to denounce it, he refused. They took him up to the top of the temple and threw him down, and that didn't kill him. So then they started stoning him, and that didn't kill him. So somebody took a Fuller's, whatever it was, and bopped him on the head and killed him. Well, then a lot of the commentaries say that's how James the Less died.
Mhm.
So who knows? You know,
Yes.
they could have been combining the two. It could have. Who knows? Maybe that was
So
his
many
favorite
James.
thing. Throw him off. And that supposedly James the Less is buried by the temple. You know,
Mm.
just telling you what I found out, whether it's true or not. So, all right, 6 through 12 to 16, and it is 6. All right, and he went up to. I got off on the rabbit trail, but he went up. They went out and continued all night in prayer to God. And when it was day, he called his disciples to himself, and from them he chose 12, whom he also named apostles. Is that apostles in yours? I think this is King James. Well, New King James. I know you don't like that either. Oh, is it? Okay. Who he called yeah. Simon, who he also named Peter, and Andrew his brother, James and John, Philip and Bartholomew, Matthew and Thomas, James the son of Alphaeus, and Simon called the Zealot, Judas the son of James, and Judas Iscariot.
This says, and Judas the brother
Brother.
of James.
Huh.
Big difference.
Son and brother, yeah.
Mhm. Mhm.
And which James?
I don't know.
Judas, the son of James.
And Judas the brother of
Of
James. And
Oh,
Judas.
but okay, but other places in the Bible say it's the son. That James was the father of Judas, not Iscariot.
So then there's another Judas.
Yeah, it says, and
Yeah,
Judas
but he
Iscariot,
also-
which also was the traitor.
Traitor.
Yes. And I think Judas the son or brother or somebody of James, not Iscariot, is also Thaddeus. It's either Thaddeus or Bartholomew. I got 'em mixed up.
They'll change names like clothes.
I know, and it makes it so hard. Although Matthew and Levi I have
You
down.
would think it's two Judas.
You know,
But
and
Judas could have had a father and a brother named James.
that's true. That's true. There's so many James.
So-
Oh, add another James.
So
add
then it
another
was two
James.
Judas, there's two Judas,
There's two
because it's saying here
Judases right
Judas,
there.
Judas saying Judas, the brother of James, and Judas Iscariot. That's the same Judas they're referring to, or that's two separate Judas?
No, Judas is either
That's
Thaddeus or
Iscariot.
not Iscariot. It's Judas, and they always most of the time they say when they name him not Iscariot. So there's Judas, the son or brother of James, and then there's Judas Iscariot, the traitor.
Okay, so that's two different.
Yeah, there's two Judases, but Judas, not Iscariot, has another name.
Which I think is Thaddeus.
Thaddeus, yeah.
But I'm not sure, because there's two of them I get mixed up. But we'll get into it.
You'll get it,
All
you'll
right.
get it.
Okay, so, all right, John 1:40-51. Oh, this is interesting too. Two people, and the only one we know for sure is Andrew, started out as, or might be more, but the one's name in here, it started out as disciples of John and then went to Jesus. Nothing like stealing your brother's disciples. All right, one of the two who heard John speak and followed him was Andrew, Simon Peter's brother. And there's two of them, but they don't name the other one. It could have been Peter, who knows. He first found his own brother Simon and said to him, so he wasn't there. It wasn't Peter. We have found the Messiah, which is translated the Christ, and he brought him to Jesus. Now when Jesus looked at him, he said, you are Simon, the son of Jonah. You shall be called Cephas, which is translated a stone. The following day, Jesus wanted to go to Galilee, and he found Philip and said to him, follow me. Now Philip was from Bethsaida, the city of Andrew and Peter. Philip found Nathanael and said to him, we have found him of whom Moses in the law and also in the prophets wrote, Jesus of Nazareth, the son of Joseph. And this is why Nathanael got kind of buzzed at the beginning. And Nathanael said to him, can anything good come out of Nazareth? Because it was
Good.
kind of, like 14th Street, Bradenton.
Don't you, I live on that street.
Oh, bad part of 14th Street. Okay,
Yeah.
17th Street.
I live on
is
that
Sarasota.
street too.
She's cleaning it up.
I live on
Right,
that
right.
street too.
Yeah, okay.
She's a
Yeah.
good disciple.
All right. Close to the court, okay?
We keeping it clean,
Yes.
putting water on the streets.
So, can anything good come out of Nazareth? Philip said to him, come and see. Jesus saw Nathanael coming toward him and said to him, behold, an Israelite indeed, in whom is no deceit. That was pretty nice after what he said. Nathanael said to him, how do you know me? And Jesus answered and said to him, before Philip called you, when you were under the fig tree, I saw you. Nathanael answered and said to him, Rabbi, you are the Son of God, you are the King of Israel. So what did they say? Peter was the first one that said you are the Son of God. He's saying it right there. Why does Peter get the good press?
Mentioned,
In
but
the,
not
in
first.
the
Oh, that's
crucifixion.
Jesus answered and said to him, because I said to you, I saw you under a fig tree, do you believe? You will see greater things than these. And he said to him, most assuredly I say to you, hereafter you shall see heaven open and the angels of God ascending and descending upon the Son of Man. Wow, we're going to see that too. Wow, wow. When you read stuff like that, you just go, wow. All right, Acts 1:13. That's where we had the last mention of Matthew. Then they returned to Jerusalem from the mount called Olivet, which is near Jerusalem, a Sabbath day's journey. And when they had entered, they went up into the upper room where they were staying. And that was supposedly Mary, another Mary, that was the only name I guess we have in the New Testament, the mother of Mark. who wrote
Mary
the
now.
Mark. Peter, and I think she had money. So, she was hosting the disciples all the time. Where they were staying, Peter, James, John, and Andrew, Philip and Thomas, Bartholomew and Matthew, James the son of Alphaeus, and Simon the Zealot, and Judas the son of James. See, now I have the son. Does yours say brother again? Okay. These all continued with one accord in prayer and supplication.
Must be brother.
With the woman and Mary, the mother of Jesus, and with his brothers. And what do you think? That's his physical brothers, his real bio brothers? Because they only believed after he was resurrected. And that could include James, his brother. Although they use brothers too so openly for believers, etc. But his is capitalized here, so I don't know. With the women and Mary, the mother of Jesus, and with his brothers. I would presume that was his bio brothers.
So we have 3 Marys.
Oh, we got 30 Marys. No, we have Mary Magdalene,
Mary the mother of Jesus.
Mary the mother of Jesus, Mary the mother of James
James
Bless, and there was another one.
Mary
The
with
John.
Lamb.
Right. All right, that's enough of that.
I'm gonna cross-reference at that.
What?
What?
That brother.
Yeah,
Okay,
tell me.
back to John, and it says, for even his own brothers did not believe in him. So these writers think that.
That it is his bio brothers.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, good.
Yeah.
All right, and then Acts 1:15 to 26. Still in one. Wrong chapter. And in those days, Peter stood up in the midst of the disciples. Altogether, the number of names was about 120, and said, "Men and brethren, the Spirit had to be fulfilled, which the Holy Ghost spoke before the mouth of David concerning Judas, who would become a guide to those who arrested Jesus, for he was numbered with us and obtained a part in this ministry. Now this man purchased a field with the wages of iniquity, and falling headlong, he burst open in the middle, and all his entrails gushed out. And it became known to all those dwelling in Jerusalem. So the field is called in his own language Akedama, which is field of blood. And for it is written in the book of Psalms, let his dwelling place be desolate, and let no one live in it, and let another take his office. Therefore, of these men who have accompanied us all the time that the Lord Jesus went in and out and among us." So obviously they were there from the baptism to the resurrection. Beginning from the baptism of Jesus to that day, well, thank you for saying what I just said. Taking out from us, one of these might become a witness with us of his resurrection. And they proposed 2. Joseph called Barsabas, who was surnamed Justus. See, there are 3 of them, his name. Joseph, Barsabas, and Justus, and Matthias. And they prayed and said, "You, O Lord, who know the hearts of all, show which of these 2 you have chosen to take part in this ministry and apostleship, from which Judas by transgression fell, and he might go into his own place, And they cast their lots, and the lot fell on Matthias, and he was numbered with the 11 apostles. I feel sorry for Justus, Barras, whatever. Think you're up that close, and then you
And then Matthias is called, and never heard from again.
Right.
So
This is like those. Yes.
so they gamble on him.
No. It's kind of like, what do we hear about Jesus growing up? From the time of the temple till the time he starts his
ministry.
ministry, we hear nothing. Oh, and I bet there's commentaries away about what happened to Jesus. He was probably, out carousing with prostitutes and gambling and drinking, and like you said, John the Baptist was something, and the Son of Man was a wine bibber, so I'm sure they had stories.
You don't hear anything about his childhood either.
No.
Except that he grew and stature
Right,
and
and,
favor with God
Right.
and man.
and don't you find it interesting that his brothers didn't believe? I mean, weren't Mary and Joseph saying this is Messiah?
Mm-hmm.
And,
Mary believed, yes.
you're right. And Joseph believed, because listen how he listened to the angel and stuff, when
Yes.
he told him to marry her.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, stay with her, whatever. But, yeah, it's so hard, but I always think about how it's so hard to the Israelites being such, you know, every time, it was so much better in Egypt, we had so much food and everything. You were slaves, you barely got to eat, really. And after they saw the sea parted, but then my sister always said, look at yourself. So, okay. And we know so much more than any of them did. We have the whole counsel of God.
That's right.
So,
Mm-hmm.
anyway. So, right at 11. All right, so Peter and, I'm just doing the whole thing on Peter, because Peter's one of the ones there's a lot of stuff about. Peter and John are the only ones that really have a lot. So, but Karis goes, Mom, but they probably already know everything about Peter. I said, I'm gonna find it.
There are lots of things we don't know about Peter, but plenty of stuff
All right,
about
any
Peter for real.
questions, anything to add? Great questions, great comments. Thank you for that reference too. I was right. Proving I was right. Thank you so much. Comments, questions?
Nice questions.
Great information.
Thank you. I listened, this is all pastor. Oh my goodness.
I could imagine.
And they would,